Welcome back. You're watching The Fix. Joining me now to continue the conversation is, of course, my regular sparring partner, Sunday Times columnist, Peter Proust. Peter, good evening.
How you
Welcome.
doing? Yeah. It's nice to see the Minister here with us.
Absolutely. Now, just before the break, Peter, I indicated to our viewers that we are, of course, in possession of the document that was presented by the Limpopo Province PEC. Take us through the stuff that you found particularly perturbing in what they raised with the top six.
Well, first of all, I mean, Minister, sadly, you're no longer in the top six, but I'm sure you'll be back sooner rather than later. But this is the most extraordinary document. It's an appeal to the party to intervene politically in this, come up with a political solution to the crimes that have been committed at this VBS Bank, right? It starts off, well, it doesn't start off, but amongst others, it mentions that VBS Bank is a beacon of African success in the financial market. It was established in 1982 by the Republic of Venda Homeland Government. It is alleged that its financial difficulties were a result of mismanagement. They pour cold water on all of the stuff that's happened, warn the ANC that it could cost the party votes in Limpopo, and suggest that the ANC leadership meet with the King of the Vavenda and, where possible, stakeholders to state the commitment of the ANC to work together to find a solution to the problem. What a ridiculous document, honestly. This is a crime scene. Surely there's not a political solution to that.
Well, unfortunately for me, I haven't really had any access to the document. But let me just say, firstly, the approach on this matter has been that the Reserve Bank is leading all of government and all of society in investigating this matter. They put up a forensic process, and they have said to us, and which they've reported to government in general and to the ANC, that look, they will find out who are liable for prosecution, and they will then take the matter up. They're working with the Hawks and so on. So as far as we're concerned, that issue is going on. Now, then, of course, I mentioned what we're doing on the side of CoGTA. At the end of the day, we need to find out what happened here. We need to make sure that people are brought to book and all of that. Now, I'm not sure what the real issue is here. I think one of the concerns that people might have had is the fact that we had so many people out there on the streets, staying throughout the day and night, and they didn't know what was happening. And so they might have raised queries to say, what's happening here? Can anybody tell us what the problem is? And so on and so on. I don't think anyone would intervene to try and stop an, an investigation process. I think the issue could have probably arisen around the point of communities who are saying, but we lost money, what happened? Can anybody come in and assist there? So I think that's probably more the angle that I would understand.
Because the danger is that once again, the party risks, the ANC risks being seen to be reacting to something that Julius Malema does. So Julius Malema has been saying, we've got to save the bank. And here suddenly we have the Limpopo ANC saying, we've got to save the bank to the top six of the ANC, and it sets you up. It sets you up for failure.
No, I think it's very difficult for the top six to stop anybody coming to report an issue to them. The question is, how do you deal with it from there? When we first dealt with the matter, our first question was to the Reserve Bank, why haven't you arrested people? And they said, no, but you can't. You wait until our process. So there's going to be people who are going to respond to this issue to say, can something be done until you go through the details of it to show what has happened? For me, for example, was to say, take the money and give to the municipalities. They said, no, there's no money. So when you don't know the details, you'll go out there, with an outpouring of grief and pain to say, please help us. Only once you get the response, then you know what is happening.
Minister, what interests me about the story over and above the document is, of course, what the City Press had written. And down in the City Press article, there is the mentioning of the fact that if the top six doesn't agree to rescue this bank, the ANC in Limpopo will have no choice but to join in a call for an early National General Council, which is, of course, that meeting in between conferences that could very well remove someone like Cyril Ramaphosa. Is this a real threat that is coming from the provinces in the African National Congress? Is President Cyril Ramaphosa's leadership under threat? Why is it so important to save this bank?
No, I don't think the argument so much is about saving the bank more than dealing with the people who are, left on their own, those stock fellas and those individuals who have saved money in there. But when it comes to the issue of the African National Congress, President Cyril Ramaphosa was elected in a normal ANC conference in which there was quite a bit of contestation. And once the conference was done, the question of leadership is closed for 5 years. There's no question. As you know, those who are contesting are all working together. So there's no threat to anybody.
Why does this thing still burn away, though? There's something.
Which one?
This thing that somebody's stoking all the time about is a special NGC to...
Well, this is politics. If you pick up one voice out of a million voices that are approving, and you pick up a voice that is dissenting, well, of course, you're going to make headlines because you are media. But as far as we're concerned, anything is open there. You can stand up in an ANC meeting and criticize the president. It's allowed. But because you criticize the president doesn't mean that we now want him removed. The president is in place, and the 5 years that we're going through is a normal 5 years, and every now and again is going to be raised, issues are going to be raised, he will be challenged on certain issues and so on, but doesn't make him not to be a legitimate president. He remains a president of the ANC.
Sure.
I agree with you. What I find really interesting about the appeal here, though, is that it tries to suggest that this bank is a bank that is looked on with pride, that it is something that served the community. This is, in fact, the remnant of a Bantustan institution. The other thing, of course, which is of a great concern is that municipalities legally were not allowed to do business with a mutual bank. There's very strict regulations around that. How is it possible, Minister, that not only 22 municipalities in Limpopo did business with this mutual bank, you also had municipalities in the Northwest as well as in the Free State? And then, of course, what makes this bank famous, this is the bank that gave former President Jacob Zuma the loan to pay back the money that he owed on Nkandla. So it's a loaded political environment.
Well, firstly, the bank was operating legally as a mutual bank, and secondly, the fact that it had a history of coming from the homelands. It's like you've got towns which were used to build by homeland government. We use them proudly today because they're all the heritage of South Africans. So I think let's not go in that direction. Let's go into the fact that here is an institution where corruption has happened, fraud has happened, theft and loss of funds from normal, ordinary South Africans has happened. Let's deal with it as such. And for me, that's where the real focus needs to be. Now, the fact that the municipalities went into that process, they were actually sent, some of them were given information to say they must stop that. Some did remove their money and so on. Those that got caught in the process, if there had not been fraud, this money could have stopped them and said, bring the money back, it would have worked. The issue here is that there's been fraud and we mustn't run away from it. Doesn't matter how you decorate it. Once there's loss of public money, and in that institution, then we must all stand up and say, we want to know what happened and dig until we find out what happened here. So let's focus on it in that way.
Mm-hmm. Would it be incorrect there? Would it be correct for the party to say to the Limpopo branch, look, it's not a political matter, it's up to the Reserve Bank and the police. We can't help you.
Your problem here is that we are looking at the shadow and trying to decipher the size of the shade, the complexion of the individual who is behind there. We don't know the real story. We don't know the speculation. We don't know exactly what was said, what was until the official give you an official statement. I wouldn't be able to say anything about it.
It ends with
the point for me is if they raise the issue. Until people find out the truth of what happened and are given all the information, I think people are going to panic and go all over to look for systems.
Well, this is exactly what is happening here by the looks of it. The implications of the saga, according to this document from the Limpopo ANC, Bemba region is an ANC stronghold. The constituency has expectations from the ANC to assist them resolve the matter. leadership of the ANC province in the province is not privy to initiatives taken. Perceived absence of the ANC provides fertile ground for opposition. The suspicion that the bank may be closed may agitate our constituency undesirably. So they really are asking desperately for political help, and you can't, ANC can't give it to them.
Well,
it would be wrong.
What we should focus on is what is the response of the leadership.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now, the leadership is fully informed of this matter, and they will not come with a wrong answer. The problem is we are all dealing with this thing through a source. Who knows who went there, who knows who said what, and so on. Largely speculative material. So I don't think we must castigate the ANC because of that. What we can say here is that there's obviously concern from the ANC in Limpopo about this matter. And of course, they don't have enough information, as you have heard. So what needs to be done is to take them through that information so that we can know what is it that can be solved. In terms of the processes that are going on, I think everybody needs to support the proper and formal investigation process.
Minister, let me come back to some of the 5 measures that you've outlined, right? Now, one of the big issues, of course, is capacity, technical capacity. We're talking about engineers, we're talking about people with technical capacity. Now, when you were still the Treasurer General and Gwede Mantashe was still the Secretary General, there was this big plan to go to retirees, who used to do these things in town planning, in local government, to engage them and get their services. Some of them are actually now working as consultants. Can you point us to any one specific municipality where you have brought some of the elements of your reform plan in and you've actually changed and turned the municipality around?
Well, let's start here. That there's been a number of efforts over the past few years to try and turn the municipalities around. And our approach is what we call back to basics. We're trying to get everyone to get the municipalities to do the simple things that municipalities must do. Clean the streets, remove the refuse out of the way, and fix potholes and so on. We've seen that a number of them have actually faltered when it comes to that. And so we went deep into saying what is the problem. And amongst the various issues, which I'm not going into, but just one particular one, is that we found that only 55 municipalities have engineers. And so if you lack the technical
capacity... That's out of 257.
57. That's correct, yes.
Why is that?
Well, there are a number of reasons. One of the reasons is the fact that some of the municipalities can't afford engineers. They have no revenue base of their own, and so they are also only dependent on the transfers from national government, and all they have is a collection of small towns and dorpies and villages, and so they can't raise money from their own residents. And yet the people who are there are the poorest, so it makes it difficult to raise the money to pay for the engineers. As a result, when it's time to get an allocation to them, they can't spend it because they don't have the technical expertise. Now, we estimated that over the past 5 years, about 3.4 billion rand was actually taken away from some of those municipalities and allocated to those which can spend. And in the process, about 8.4 billion was actually moved back and forth on the same municipalities. So we're now going to get engineers to create district support teams so that they can assist all the local municipalities. Right now, we're actually going to be servicing with these professionals 55 municipalities.
You know, some of the problems, of course, has been linked to the fact that you've put inappropriate people in positions of responsibility. I spoke to the Auditor General recently at the South African Council of Churches, and he was saying to members of the community, if monies have been approved to go and build a bridge, don't worry about the technicalities of the bridge. Just ask the people where the bridge is so that you can go and see where the bridge is supposed to be built because the money was approved. What is your recommendation to communities who want to hold the elected leaders accountable at municipal levels?
I will agree with that. Firstly, we're insisting that the municipalities must go out, talk to the communities, and explain what is it that they plan to do when. Because people in the village, in the townships, in those particular wards must hold their leaders accountable. If you say there's going to be something, they must actually hold them accountable. So we want to insist that there must be good communication with the communities so that there's transparency and accountability in the way the services are rendered.
Minister, unfortunately, we have run out of time. We've obviously got so many things to discuss. Thank you so very much to the Minister for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. We will, of course, continue with the conversation after the break when we look at the week ahead.